I went right to railroad and see my seniority was there for me. I just went to work. The biggest mistake that I ever made, I think, is not going into engine service. I in 40 latter part of 46 or 47, I made a trip on the Tennessee division. That wasn't my seniority district, but they'd call us an emergency over there. And I was a workaholic back then, and I anything they called me for, I'd go. And I caught a trip with Lloyd Burns. That's, you know, Christy Little. It's well, that he would be her grandfather. And but anyway, we were coming back north, and we stopped at New Albany. And back then, we'd cut off right there in town by a drugstore, and the operator was our train operator was upstairs over this drugstore, and they'd come down and hand us our orders and stuff like that. But anyway, I had a delivery to make to the Frisco there. Frisco run through New Albany. And I made the delivery. And of course, I wasn't too familiar with the area because I was a barred man, or I didn't work over there all the time. And I sideswiped a boxcar in another track and bent some grab irons. And I looked at it, and it didn't look too bad, so I said to myself, I won't say anything about it. Nobody. Well, when I coupled up this, they call him Wendy Smith. He was a train master over there. And he walked up. He said, "Hey, boy," he said, "you know you sideswiped the car over there?" I said, "Yes, sir. I didn't do much damage, though." I said, "I'm a barred man over here, and it don't make any difference." He said, "I tell you what, I'm going to have an investigation. But I tell you what I'll do. If you'll transfer over to engine service on the Tennessee division when you get to Jackson, I won't make you cub the road or anything. I'll put you on the fireman's list, and you can go right to work." I said, "Oh, Mr. Smith, I appreciate that, but," I said, "I feel like I got too much seniority. As a brakeman, I would hate to give that up." Not realizing at that time that all the men on the Tennessee division were in their 60s. In just a few years, there was a big turnover.
You would have shot up close to the top.
In no time. And those were good paying jobs, good easy jobs, engineer. But I always hated that. You know, Byron Cox, you heard me talk about Byron.
Maybe.
Well, I worked with his father on the railroad. He was an engineer, M&O engineer. Well, Byron come along as a brakeman several years later and went into engine service and moved right up fast, like 10 or 15 years after I would have been an engineer. So
if you had gone in engineer service, do you think you would have eventually become a train master?
I wouldn't have been trained, no.
You would have never met Mr. Brock. Isn't he the reason you became train master?
Absolutely. I told you I met Mr. Brock at Tupelo, Mississippi. There's a passing track over at Verona, or Glen was the name of the passing track. And I got on the back end with Mr. Brock, and I had been working on a switch engine at Tupelo and servicing all those industries around there, like the Daybright, Super Saglers, fertilizer plant, and all those places. And he told me, instead of going up ahead of his car and getting on the coach, he said, "Come on, get on here on the back." And then going through Tupelo, it's summertime, nice, he would point out, what is that over there? And he'd ask me a lot of questions. And I had all the answers because I'd been working there. And in all probability, he was fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I knew as much about the industries as I did, and he asked me if I'd be interested in it.
Was he the president of the railroad at this
He
time?
was the president of the railroad.
Okay, so he had already taken over
He
from,
owned control and stock of the railroad.
but he had nonetheless taken over from I.B. Tiger.
Hmm?
He had taken over from I.B. Tiger.
Yeah.
Had I.B. Tiger passed away by now?
Yeah, I think Mr. Taggart. Well, I know he's retired. He was old because the last time I saw Mr. Taggart, in fact, the only time that I ever talked to him was in '46 when I come out of the service. I was on a passenger run, and I come out of Cairo, and his private car, was on the rear end of the Rebel. And his man, he called him his man, colored man, come over and said, Mr. Taggart wants to see you back there. And I didn't know that he ever knew I even exist, but somebody had evidently told him that I'd just come back from the service, because he commended me for having served in the armed forces, and he said, I would invite you to have supper with us, but he said, I'm going to cut out at Jackson. We got everything put up. But he said, I want you to take this $10 and buy you a steak now. And you might think now $10 wasn't much, but let me tell you something, in '46, $10 buy a big steak and all the trimming.
Well, 46. How much was gas per gallon in '46? Do you remember? Estimate?
Not exactly, but it's way less than $1.
Yeah.
I mean,
So the equivalent of $10 then would be what now? 50, 40, 60, more than that?
in most cases, gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's unbelievable.
Well, put it this way: how much were you making per hour at that time, or did you get paid per trip?
I wish if I had my time books, I got all my time books, I could show you. On this particular passenger run, we leave Jackson and go to Oklahoma, Mississippi. It's only 124 miles, but you got a guarantee of 150 miles, and 150 miles paid $12, about $12 and a half.
How long did it take to go 150 miles at that time?
Well, it didn't take long on passenger train because you didn't stop it
Yeah.
twice and run 60, 70 miles an hour. But anyway, then you come out of Oklahoma and you go all the way to Cairo. And I forget now, but that was over 150 miles. It paid $13 and something. And then 12 something back in. So a round trip and a day off would be 3 days. It'd be 12, 24, 34, about $36 or $7.
For 3 days' work.
Yeah.
And so you basically got a day's.
That was good money.
You got a day's pay right there.
That was good money.
Huh. So you're paid by the mile then, kind of like a truck driver does, basically.
Yeah.
And you were a brakeman on all these trips.
Yeah.
And your duties, and I
Flagman, and sometimes I run baggage, and baggage, I think it paid just a little bit more than flagging. I could show you I kept all my pay rate sheets, my time books.
Well, say you're running baggage. Are you the one responsible for putting people's luggage in the baggage car?
Stack it up. We haul a whirl of corpse in all the corpse.
Dead bodies? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they like a corpse was going from here to Tupelo, they wouldn't think about taking it in an ambulance or
Throw it on the train.
put it on the baggage car. And
What?
somebody always rode with it in the coach.
Oh, okay.
They always, it was
Escorted it.
accompanied by a member of the family or somebody.
Were they normally just pine boxes, or were they actually coffins?
They would, yeah, they'd be actual coffins. But
Embalmed and
I've had
everything.
3 and 4 in my baggage car at one time.
That's interesting.
And we used to haul a little bit of everything. We used to haul bees. Bees would get all over that baggage car. You'd have them on your arm. You could take a ruler and rake them off your arm.
Honeybees?
Honeybees.
And they wouldn't sting you?
They wouldn't sting you if you didn't.
Just be gentle with them?
Just be real easy with them. Chickens.
In the baggage car. Was it just one baggage car?
And this little train, well, it's going off.
Move your mouse around, it'll come back.
Uh-huh.
Move your mouse, it'll come back.
All right.
There it is.
If I was running baggage on that, if we'd started McNair, people that had kinfolks that worked on the railroad, or if they knew it, worked at Jackson, Bridge Gang and Section Gang, they'd send them like milk and butter and eggs. They'd have them in a box or a shoe box or something and have the name on it. And when we get to Jackson, they'd all be out there to get
Waiting on it.
waiting on their vegetables and eggs and chickens.
And what did it cost to ship like that?
We didn't charge them anything.
Oh, because they worked for the
They
railroad.
worked for the railroad.
I think one thing we haven't talked about in the other 2 videos is hobos. I didn't know that hobo stood for homebound. Is that true?
No, back then they don't ride these trains now because they're not equipped like they was back then. There's always empty boxcars and a place for them to ride. But I never did run any off. In fact, I've given many $1.25. Maybe I wouldn't have but $1.50 or $2 for the whole trip to eat on, survive. We'd get a bed for 50 cents, but I always felt sorry for them. I'd give them a quarter or something like that to get them something to eat.
Did they just were they hopping trains to get somewhere, or they just like riding the trains,
They just like living like that.
going from place to
Hobo
place?
jungle. They'd be 10 or 15 sleeping in the summertime around a campfire.
Where was that at?
Huh?
Hobo Jungle. Where was that at?
Or just different places,
Okay.
under bridges,
Uh-huh.
pasteboard boxes. They just like to ride. We had an engineer on the switch engine at Tupelo. Well, what's his name? But his brother, nice looking fella, and seemed intelligent. Stayed at a boarding house when I was at Tupelo, and that fella would come there about once a month. Barker was his name. Humphrey Barker was the engineer's name. And his brother would come there, and he'd stay with him in the boarding house. And he'd have to throw his underwear away. They'd be so dirty, like he'd wore them a month.
Mm-hmm.
And Humphrey'd give him some new underwear and all, and let him take a bath in his bathroom. And he'd go like, I don't reckon he'd ever wash or.
Now, when I knew that there were boarding houses or hotels at these stops. I mean, there's an old one down by the NC St. L, the Neely House. Was it in a boarding? Was it a boarding house or like a bed and breakfast, or was it just a hotel?
Neely House down there. These drummers used to ride passenger trains. They'd come to town, selling the whole hosiery, whatever, to the stores and all. But they'd stay there at the Neely House. See.
Okay.
They walked down. They were drummers. But now at the terminal, like there was a Miss Fowler at Oklahoma, Mississippi. And the first trip I went down, best food you ever put in your mouth, she set a table. And man, it was long as this room. And just had all kind of vegetables and everything, 50 cents.